Whitby, the most romantic evocation of that old feeling that it's grim up north. And once upon a time, I spent the weirdest winter night in that jet black jewel on the Yorkshire coast. Whitby's a town set into a steep ravine, the perfect natural harbour, set there for centuries and cycles of centuries, while the flux of the whole world arrived on those waters. An altogether more trivial trade passes through its quayside these days. Famous chippies with queues of day trippers round the higgledy-piggledy block, picture framers with paintings of galleons by moonlight, hammy actors' voices beckoning you on into the Dracula experience.
Much of the Dracula tale takes place here in Whitby. His ship was wrecked on the beach opposite, on Tate Hill Sands. And the heart is held prisoner by the hypnotic charms of Dracula's email vampire. Meanwhile, Dracula plots to take over the soul of Jonathan's fiancée, Mina.
And beyond that tacky tourist scrum, on top of the East Cliff, the parish church by the Abbey ruins beckoned. Away from the clamour of the crowds, with just the sound of the seagulls above the rickety-roofed old fishermen's tenements. And floating somewhere above that busy little world, we walked round the parish grounds. Winged cherubs' heads weathered away over the centuries. Gravestones weathered to the point of disintegrating over long epochs of salty sea air. On this cliff-faced graveyard of sailors, and its memorials to others less fortunate, whose only grave is the sea. Strange to think that on this spot, the first poetry in the English language was gifted to Caedmon, an illiterate shepherd, who received it from an angel in a dream, a story that's come down to us through the Venerable Bede.
He set his limbs at rest and fell asleep. Then some man stood by him in his dream and hailed and greeted him and addressed him by his name. Caedmon, sing me something. I do not know how to sing. Nevertheless, you must sing. What must I sing? Sing to me of the first creation. When he received this answer, then he began immediately to sing in the praise of God the Creator, verses and words that he had never heard.
And up here, at the edges of the land and the edges of our collective memory, the edges of space and time, it's easy to imagine that same mysterious voice whispering on the wind, calling you back to unknown aeons, an enchanted, far-off world, the earliest memories of our island, like the elusive first memories of childhood, beyond which all is forgotten darkness. As dusk fell early on that chilly winter afternoon, like good tourists, we went to the Whitby Museum. It had a dark and demented feel, the feeling of a slightly unhinged cabinet of curiosities. Victorian jewellery made of jet, the only precious stone of the British Isles, found in seams in the local cliffs. And the most gruesome sight of the day, the Hand of Glory, a withered hand stolen from a hanged man's corpse. Reading the notes bent my head out of shape. With lengthy black magic incantations, holding a lit candle made of the body fat of the dead murderer. The hand was used by burglars or other evildoers to cast a spell that put people into a deep trance from which they couldn't wake until a candle was put out with milk or blood. We spent a couple of hours in the pub after that. Out the window, the word Funland glowed unsettlingly from the amusements. My missus went back for an early night, but I walked out into Whitby alone for a strange, solitary midnight wander. I just couldn't shake a strange sense of foreboding. I could hear the drunken shenanigans of the pubs being turned out and felt unaccountably afraid. There was something about that commotion my gut was telling me to get away from, fast. And then came this blood-curdling howl. Not a dog, not a fox, but something unnatural, unreal, hard to make out, like a howl heard in a fever or a dream. At first it sounded like it was coming from the town centre far down the bottom of the hill, and I put it down to drunk people being thrown out the pubs and pissing about. But then that awful baying started again. But this time I had the unmistakable impression it was suddenly halfway up that long steep hill. Panic started creeping in and I hurried my step. I heard it again, and now it sounded only a street or two away. Something automatic and primordial kicked in. I legged it down the rest of that alley, panicking because earlier the lock had been stiff and the keys had jammed in the door. I got to the back door and luckily the key worked first time. I slammed that heavy-set Georgian door behind me, and I've never felt so relieved to be off the streets and safe inside. Half slept in a fitful and frightened doze that night, a vivid image of a horrible face staring at me with terrible eyes flashing through my mind.
Michael.
I lay in that bed in a dream that felt like I was awake when a hand grabbed me by the shoulder,
Michael, can you hear me?
viciously twisting and writhing at it, trying to hurt me. And then I woke up startled and in pain, and my shoulder was fucking knacking, just the same as in the dream. The next day, when I woke up, I looked in the mirror and found what looked like 3 finger-shaped bruises on my shoulder, just where I dreamed the hand had tried to drag me off to God knows where. At breakfast, I googled dogs haunting Whitby. What I found freaked me out.
But what of the person who is the bar guest? Because he's an omen of imminent death, and only the doomed can hear his howls.
And walking round town later, my anxiety spiking like a dead man's hand on my shoulder every time I heard a dog barking, a baby bawling in the distance, seagulls fighting over fish and chips, always reminding me of that demented howl of the night before. But this was all a while back now, and I'm happy to say I'm still alive. But what the hell went on that night, I really have no idea. Wandering round that haunted shoreline that dredges up hellhounds, vampire counts, or the earliest English poetry, gifted us by an angel in a dream, emerging from the unknown deep like whaling ships once did, back from perilous seas into the familiar calms of the harbour.